Hey guys, it's Mr. Moody, and today, if you're watching this, you're getting a little review over claims, reasons, and evidence, the CRE in arguments. Okay. Anytime you read something, the author is trying to make a point. And if you're reading an argument, they're trying to make an argument. They're trying to convince you of something. That's the claim. It's that one thing that they're trying to convince you of. Okay? It's their position on an issue. So if you're taking notes, you'd want to put something in about how the claim is the author's main argument or position. And you have to identify that first. Read through, reread, wrestle with it until you understand what the gist is that they're trying to argue. Sometimes it's very clear in the title. I would also look at the very beginning and at the very end of the text to look for what you think the author's claim is, the overall main argument. Now, once I find the claim, I typically don't immediately start thinking about reasons and evidence. I'll just ask myself, how's the author supporting this argument? And I will go through and I will annotate like everything in that article that I feel like is supporting their claim. So I'm showing you a text called "All the Evidence Shows a Conspiracy to Kill JFK." The claim is pretty clear from the title in this article, and it's even kind of shown again later on in the end. But that claim is pretty clear right from the top. So what I've done is I've gone through and I've underlined and kind of marked and done some brackets on the left, any passages that I think really help to support that claim. Now, when I do that, what I'm identifying reasons, evidence, just anything that supports that claim. And once I do that, then I can sort of determine, okay, is that restating the claim? I could label that with a C. Is it stating a reason why the claim is true? I can label that with an R. Or is it evidence that kind of proves one of those reasons to be true? I would label that with an E. I think the easiest ones to identify is the evidence. So even though we talk about CRE, maybe you start by identifying some evidence. So like when I read through, and I'm going to, you might not be able to read, but you can follow along on your own copy if you have it. Some of the stuff that I've underlined in here is evidence. And I'm going to go through and mark a couple things with an E for evidence in paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In paragraph 5, there's this whole section about how many people heard gunshots from where. There's like 51 people who said that they heard gunshots come from the right, from the grassy knoll, and only 38 or only 32 people thought that shots came from the building. So that's evidence. So I went through and I marked an E. Those are like specific numbers. After that, there's some evidence about like JFK's head and body being slammed back to the left, and Newton's law of motion, Newton's third law of motion, stating for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Like this stuff is, it's not directly saying why there's a conspiracy to kill JFK. So it's not a reason. It's some type of evidence that they're using to help prove their point. So I've marked on the text again in paragraph 7 here, the evidence of his body sort of being thrown back in Newton's law of motion. Now the very last little bit of paragraph 7, it says, I'm going to read this sentence word for word. It says, "Thus the bullet that destroyed JFK was fired from the right front, from the grassy knoll, far from the alleged location of the alleged assassin." They're talking about Lee Harvey Oswald. So that I've just double underlined, and I'm going to put an R next to it, because that is a reason why the claim is true. That is a reason why the evidence shows a conspiracy. Why? Because the bullet that destroyed JFK came from the right front. That's not where Lee Harvey Oswald was. Lee Harvey Oswald was behind him. So they're saying that the reason why it's a conspiracy is because a bullet came from the front. And then they have evidence to prove that point to be true. And their evidence was stuff like how many people heard the shots fired from the back versus the front. That's in paragraph 5. And then the evidence about Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Whether or not that applies in this case is up to you to decide. And Mr. Bannon, he could help you figure that one out too. But that's how they're supporting their argument. That's the evidence they're using. Now, my favorite way to kind of write out an argument in as clear a way possible is something called boxes and bullets. And the way I kind of do boxes and bullets, I do a claim up in the box, and then I do bullets with my reasons and my evidence underneath. So, like the claim here, there was a conspiracy to kill JFK. That's the claim that we identified from the article's title, okay? That's the claim we identified there. And then when we dig back into it and look at the support and how that kind of the relationship between the different pieces of support, we see the reason is that the bullet that killed John F. Kennedy came from the grassy knoll, not from the book depository where where Lee Harvey Oswald was stationed with his rifle. And they provide some evidence to support that reason. And the evidence that they used in this article was that Newton's third law of motion states that every action has an equal opposite reaction. That forced JFK backwards. His body jerked backwards. So that would clearly be what happened to him. He was shot from the front. And the other evidence was out of 121 witnesses, 51 thought that the shots were fired from the grassy knoll, and only 32 thought that they were fired from the building. 38 had no opinion. So that evidence is used to support to kind of prove the reason, to prove that reason that the shots were fired from the front, that the bullet that killed JFK was from the front, not from the rear. And the reason why it's a conspiracy, right? The reason why this author's saying it is a conspiracy is because the shot was not fired from Lee Harvey Oswald's gun behind the president, but was actually fired from the grassy knoll, which was kind of out in front of the president. And then he uses evidence to prove that. So a little recap, identify the claim first, okay, the gist. Read it, wrestle with it until you get the gist, until you get that claim nailed down. Either like put a box around it in the writing, or even better, write that claim up at the top of the page and then reread it, looking for all the support. What else does the author do to support that idea? Once you've annotated all the things that support the author's main idea, the author's claim, then start thinking, okay, which of these are reasons, which ones are evidence, and which ones are just restating the claim. And then mark up your text with the C, the R, and the E, okay? Claims, reasons, and evidence. As always, if you need help, just ask, but I hope this was helpful to you. Bye.